Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbon TV or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. Do you want to become a better shooter, reduce flinch, protect your ears, and just overall enjoy shooting your gun that much more? Then there's no better way to do that than by adding a suppressor to the end of your barrel. Be sure to check out Huxwrx Safety Co, as they are a leader in the suppressor world with their OSS Flow-Through Technology, virtually eliminating blowback and toxic gas that can affect weapon system performance and shooter health. To find out more about Huxwrx, go to huxwrx.com. That's huxwrx.com, and go get yourself a suppressor for your upcoming hunts. This podcast is also proudly brought to you by OnX Hunt. When I first got into hunting, I kept hearing all about public land and different access and how to find different locations to hunt. I was like, well, how are people even identifying all this stuff? Well, sure enough, I came across the number one hunting GPS app, and that is OnX Hunt. If you guys want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, OnX Hunt is the number one GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust OnX Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. It was a game changer for me, and I know it's going to be a game changer for you if you've never used it. If you have used it, you know the power that it holds. Guys, I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you want to know more about OnX, go to onxmaps.com/hunt. and check out their app. Be blessed, freedom on, and stay soulful. All right, guys, if you're in the market for optics, I want you to go check out blackdiamondoptics.com. Black Diamond Optics offers world-class sporting and tactical optics, including thermals, all at wholesale pricing, direct to consumer. They are going to be partnering up with us for 2023, and I want to start pointing you over towards their direction. Check out Black Diamond Optics. If you've got any questions about it, shoot us a message. Love to hear from you. Be blessed, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, and tonight I'm joined by a wonderful human being that I met at the Dallas Safari Club convention here in Dallas back in the month of January at the beginning of the year. And as I was walking the aisle, I was getting to know people and shake hands and be interested in business and all sorts of stuff. Greg was one of the guys that really stood out to me and struck me very quickly with what he is offering as a service for all people who are interested in hunting, fishing, outdoors, and sustaining lifestyle. So I wanted to talk with him and learn more about everything that he's doing at Outdoor Solutions. And we're going to be learning all about that here shortly. So Greg, brother, thanks for joining for an Instagram Live podcast, brother.
Dude, can you believe it's already been 6 months? January was 6 months ago. That's crazy.
Time is flying lately. I don't know if it's like the world's moving faster or what's happening, but stuff is happening in it's blowing me away. I look at my children, I'm like, how are you having conversations with me like this already? Like, get out of here.
It goes by way too fast.
Yes. All right. So, Greg, for all the people who are hopping on this IG Live and going to listen to this podcast, give a little introduction, background on yourself about who you are and how Outdoor Solutions came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we are in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm about as oaky as you can get, even though I do spend almost as much time in Texas. I heard that you said we had some Texas guests on there, so we are a huge fan of Texas. We spend a lot of time down north of Abilene and then also another location east of Lubbock a little bit. So big fan of the state. But we actually will be celebrating our 19th year this October, which is insane to me. It's absolutely crazy. This actually started as a hobby in 2004. I was a national sales manager for a Fortune 500 company out of Chicago and was gone Monday through Friday as a part-time dad, part-time husband. And my wife and I started looking for something else to do so I could be home, be with my wife, be with my kids.
Right.
And anyway, I thought, let's start a side gig. Let's take up some more time. And so it wasn't Outdoor Solutions at the time. It was actually a franchise company. That's a whole different story. But anyway, so I bought this franchise and we started putting together hunting and fishing trips for people. So we've got a network of outfitters that we work with that myself and a couple of other guys have actually personally been to. We've hunted with them, we fished with them, been there, done that kind of thing. And we basically do their marketing for them. So on one of our websites, if somebody's looking for an elk hunt, they can go there and see all the different elk hunts that we have. They'll get in touch with our big game manager. His name is Lindsey Moss. He's been with us since 2006, almost since the beginning.
Wow.
So 17 years he's been with us. And he can tell you everything about every outfitter that we have. He knows way more than I do. We've added a bunch of outfitters, of course, since then. Some have come and gone. But anyways, we just put these trips together for people. Doesn't matter if it's, big game is our bread and butter. We do some fishing. We do, of course, lots of turkey and then upland and waterfowl and that kind of stuff as well. So that's what was started in 04. And then in 2012, we opened our first long range school location in Utah. Have since opened two more. We have two locations in Texas. The two locations I was just mentioning a second ago. Those are a 3-night, 2.5-day experience geared towards hunters. They're 1,000-yard classes. We're not advocating shooting at animals at 1,000 yards. We'll shoot at still targets at 1,000 yards. But when that 400, 500-yard opportunity presents itself out west, which is very realistic, you know exactly what to do. And then the final thing, actually not the final thing, but one of the things that we started in 2012 is a program called From Field to Table that I'm super passionate about. And basically, we're teaching people from the very beginning, hence the name From Field to Table. We're giving them some shooting instruction. We're teaching them how to hunt, how to field dress, how to skin. And then we have 4 chefs on our team, and we teach them how to butcher, process, and cook wild game. Most of them are in a 4-night, 4-day experience. So that's a blast. And then we got a bunch of other stuff that we did too, but those are the 3 big ones.
It cracks me up when it's like, I think I'm going to start a side hobby, a side hustle. And then all of a sudden you're just like, bam, you're full on going at it. And 17 years is what you said?
19 years.
19 years. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. 17 years that Lindsey's been with us. But yeah, October of 2004 is when we started. And seriously, it was just supposed to be a side hustle. To support my hunting habit, just so I could go to some cooler places and have a little bit of side money. And this may be a whole different story, but one of the questions I get asked all the time is, how did you get started in this business? Literally and figuratively by accident. So we started the business in October of 2004. October of 2005. The business was doing really, really well. I was still the national sales manager for that company, but we were doing well, and was talking to my wife about, hey, what do you think? We're doing really well at this part-time. What if I went full-time? And I'm a risk taker. She's not. And so she's like, insurance, 401ks, so like, we'll figure it out, Well, anyway, in October of 05, exactly a year later, a Jeep crashed through our house going 70 miles an hour and ran over me while I was standing in my kitchen.
What?
Yes. So, and I usually leave that as a cliffhanger for everybody when we're doing introductions at one of our events. I always tell myself, I'm probably the only person you'll ever meet that got started in the outdoor industry or any other industry by getting ran over by a Jeep going 70 miles an hour while standing in their kitchen. And then I leave it at that. And I don't tell them anymore. Of course, everybody always wants to know the rest of the story. But because of that, that's how we got started doing this full time. I ended up losing my job because of that. I mean, literally very lucky to be here. I was in ICU for about a week, and then in the hospital for a couple of weeks after that, and had all kinds of issues. Had to learn to walk again, and just anyway, that's a whole different story. But anyway, because of that, because I lost my job, and the company I worked for was fantastic. They let me hang on as long as they could. And then, I had to go on short-term disability and the long-term disability. And obviously they had to fill the position because nobody was calling on my clients. Fortunately, we had really good insurance at the time. And all I could do was sit in a recliner with a laptop and a cell phone and just start making phone calls and start building this business. So because of an accident, we're where we are today.
There you go. I love it. Well, you and I have something in common. I did not have a car come through my house, but I was running. I like to go on runs, and I was on a sidewalk in my community. It was community. The road was a 35-mile-an-hour road, but I was crossing an apartment complex, and I always run it facing traffic so I could see cars coming at me.
Sure.
This car was speeding, and I was running across the entrance to this apartment complex, and they swerved and turned into the apartment complex right when I was in the middle of crossing it. Luckily, my ninja skills kicked in, and I turned and I jumped because I like the Holy Spirit, like intuition, like it's like, hey, keep an eye on this car. I'm watching this car, watching this car. All of a sudden, it turned, no blinker or anything, and it hit me in my shins, and I flipped upside down and did a handstand on the car until it came to a complete stop, and I landed on my feet, and I was like,
No way.
what? The lady gets out. I'm so sorry, I didn't see you. And it's like, yeah, obviously you didn't see me. So
You're going too fast.
Straight struck me. I thought the car was red because like the adrenaline, the blood going, all that. Turns out it was a black car. So I finished my 3.5 mile run, bloody shins and all. I was like in shock. And by halfway through, I was like, I didn't even get that person's contact, info, anything. Like, I'm okay. I'm still running, but yeah. So you and I have something in common. I ended up tracking her down, though. I saw the one car with handprints on its hood.
It wasn't a Jeep Grand Cherokee, was it?
No, it was not.
Yeah, I still have a little PTSD when I see one of those.
Oh, it's wild. It's wild. Okay, so brother, were you always raised a hunter? Is this something that's just in your bloodline, your heritage, or what was it that kicked you off down the road?
No, not really. So I grew up on a 2,000-acre cattle ranch here in Oklahoma. My dad was a bird hunter and an avid fisherman. He still is today. He'll celebrate his 81st birthday this year, and still loves to fish. But he bird hunted. He never big game hunted. So I grew up on this ranch, and was pretty much born with a shotgun and a 22 and one in each hand. And I had a little miniature dachshund, and we would chase squirrels, and she'd tree squirrels for me, and I'd shoot them and learn how to clean them. Same with rabbits. And that was really it. I really didn't start big game hunting until early 2000s. So just 20 some years now.
Okay.
That I've been big game hunting. So I grew up that way, outdoorsman and fishing and all that kind of stuff. But really getting into big game hunting wasn't until the early 2000s.
Okay. So what was it that kicked you off into big game hunting? Was it like a call upon your soul? Was this like, oh, this sounds interesting or fun? It's the next progression after shooting paper, shooting steel. Like, what was it?
It was really just the next little bit more to that story. Whenever I was looking for another business to start or do something else to get out of that traveling Monday through Friday, we actually came across a list of top 100 franchises in North America.
What's up, Soul Seekers Nation? Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really appreciate it. As a reward, I have some discount codes for you to use if you are in the market for a brand new hunting pack. Go check out initialascent.com and Initial Ascent packs. They are made in America. Their one-piece carbon frame is an absolute game changer. We run their packs. We love them. And you can save 5% at checkout by using the code SOULSEEKERS. That's all one word. Also, for those of you who are archery hunters and you are tired of shooting at dots on a target, check out deadnutsoutdoors.com for their lifelike 2D archery targets. You can save 20% on all of their products by using the code SOULSEEKERS at checkout. Once again, the code is SOULSEEKERS, all one word. Go check out initialascent.com and Dead Nuts Outdoors. Enjoy the podcast.
And one of them on there was a company called Outdoor Connections. They were like number 97 or something like that. And so my thought was that whenever I bought that franchise, that I was going to get into it for the fishing part of it. And I started doing, keep in mind it's 2004, I started doing all these different online ads on Yahoo. Google was just kind of barely Google,
Yep.
And so I started doing all these pay-per-click ads, but they were all for big game. And so I had to start learning big game because I was selling it. And so that's kind of how it got started. So I went on my very first big game hunt. I went in New Mexico for antelope. And I was really I put it together, but I was supposed to be a tag along. I invited a guy that I'd met named Paul Newsom. I don't know if you know that name or not.
Okay.
But he had a show called Paul Newsom Outdoors. He produced shows for Mossy Oak and some other companies. I can't remember who, but anyway, he was pretty. Oh, for the NRA, he did American Hunter, the original American Hunter show for the NRA. Anyway, so I was supposed to be taking him and watching how a TV show goes and that kind of stuff. And he's like, "All right, are you ready?" I was like, "Ready for what?" He's like, "We're gonna go get that antelope, but you're gonna be the shooter." And that was my first big game hunt. So it was in front of a camera too. So he's kind of my guide. He's right beside me, and he's like, "All right," "This is a really good one. Get on him." And he sets the tripod up, and I'm standing. He's like, "Get on him." He's like, "You need to hurry." He's just like right here in my ear, and he's making me super nervous, And he's like, "You need to let the cameraman know if you're ready, and the cameraman needs to tell you if he's ready." So not only am I doing my first big game hunt, but I'm doing it on camera, and I'm nervous as heck. I've got this legend next to me. He's whispering in my ear, telling me I need to hurry. And so anyway, I was like, "Okay, I got him. And the cameraman's like, "Okay, I'm good to go." And Paul's like, "You need to hurry. You need to hurry." And I was like, "All right, click." I never chambered around.
Oh.
So he's like, "You rookie." He's just busting my chops. He was super cool. But anyway, we got lucky. We ended up getting back on the antelope, and I got this guy down. I wouldn't have known a good antelope from as far as what people would consider a trophy to one that wasn't. And it ended up being a Boone and Crockett antelope. My very first one. I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
And anyway, it just got in my blood after that. And of course, I was already in the business. And so, like, I shortly after that, I was going up to Kuujjuaq in northern Quebec and hunting caribou. And then I got to go to Africa for like 28 days. And I started doing all this crazy stuff. I'm like, this is awesome. And plus, you're selling hunts, so you're making money. And so then it all just kind of started progressing. But yeah, it just got in my blood big time. And then my wife from the very beginning, when I told her I was going to buy this business, she's like, "Just don't become one of those hunter guys that leaves his wife for weeks at a time." I was like, "I'm not interested in big game hunting. I'm going to fish." And here we are.
Right. I know.
I'm still gone all the time.
So in a week or so is my 10-year anniversary for my marriage, and super.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Pretty jacked about it. Got 3 wonderful boys and all this stuff. Well, I met my wife online, plentyoffish.com, ironically. Like, shout out to Plenty of Fish. I met her, fell in love instantly, love at first sight, bought a ring a couple weeks after that, proposed 2 months after, and we were married within 5 months.
Wow.
So leading up to this, and this is before I was a hunter. So this is before I took hunter safety and all this stuff. I talked with her. I was like, "Hey, babe, I want to marry you. And you got to understand that at this time, my trajectory of life was to be a head football coach. Like, you're going to be a football widow come fall. Every fall, just, are you okay with that?" And I was like, really think about it, because this is the life that I'm choosing at the time and really thought was going to be ideal for myself. Turns out I started hunting a year, 2 years after that, took my hunter safety, and sports has just exited my life. Like, I don't want anything to do with it anymore, and all that. And hunting has captivated. So my wife's like, "I didn't sign up to be a hunter's wife." I'm like, "Yeah, but you signed up to be a football widow," which is kind of the same thing come fall season.
Same seasons, yeah.
Right. So with that being said, I totally understand how all of a sudden you're like, all right, captivating. Hunting is one of those things where it's like, you'll get as much out of it as much as you put into it. And the more you put into it, the more it just like, oh my gosh, this thing is incredible. Everybody's got to try it. It's like eating at that nice fancy new restaurant. Have you guys tried this yet? Have you tried it? No, you haven't? You got to do it. It is going to change your life. And here on the podcast, we always talk about how hunting has the power to transform your life through primal adventure. So, and that's why our mission is mentorship is conservation. You can never outgive good, and it's always about inspiring and conserving for the next generation. We do that through loving and investing in people's lives. With that being said, let's shift gears here a little bit, Greg, and let's talk a little bit about outdoor solutions. So you said you started this, you're going on hunts, you're booking hunts for big game, all this stuff. How did the shooting school come into play? Because you talked about not shooting animals at 1,000 yards, but around that 500 mark, I just got back from a spring bear hunt in the state of Idaho, which I missed. I should have texted you this. I have the video um, of it. I should have sent it to you so you could see my shot right before this podcast. I don't know. There must have been a little bit of wind pushing left to right. I was holding center, center of the body, high and horizontal. And I missed right in front of its face. And one of the people who have joined our lives, Travis Arnott, he's been on one of our shows. He taught us how to turkey hunt. He was like, yeah, those are tough shots. So I'm here talking to you. I come back from this hunt. I'm like, okay, doggone it. I am a good shot. I know I'm a good shooter. Why did I miss? I'm like, okay, I got to get a hold of Greg and a shooting school, and we got to talk about long-range shooting and shots that, when you can't close the distance, but you have an animal in your sights, what do you do and how do you make that shot? So talk a little bit about how you got into the long-range shooting, and then talk to us a little bit about, the basic knowledge that you need to have for long-range shooting, and then I'm going to tell you my scenario about what happened, and then we'll dissect that a little bit.
So this is an awesome scenario because your situation is exactly why we started the long range schools. So with us booking all the different hunts that we do. So like I said, it's primarily big game. That North American big game is definitely bread and butter. We do more than that than anything. We send out between 600 and 800 clients a year on hunts and fishing trip, but by far most of it is big game hunting in North America. And whenever we're preparing clients, especially clients that live in like the Northeast, so Pennsylvania and Kentucky and Ohio and New York and New Jersey, they don't have places, their ranges are 100 yards. Mm-hmm. And then whenever they hunt there in their own properties or in their own areas, it's thickly wooded. And some of them don't have rifle seasons. It's slug gun and muzzleloader. But they want to come out west and they want to hunt antelope and mule deer and elk. And so when we prep them for the hunts, we prepare a gear list and we, kind of give them the lay of the land and what to expect, what the terrain is like, that they need to be physically prepared. But then also one of the caveats is you need to be prepared. Let's just say like on an antelope hunt in New Mexico or in Montana, you got to be prepared to shoot out to 400 yards, sometimes even further. And it's not because like, okay, hey, this is good enough, because that's as close as you're going to get. It's not about, hey, how far away can I hit this animal? That's not what it's about. It's just that there are times that you are not going to get any closer, whether you're in real steep country like you were in Idaho, and maybe you're rim to rim, but across the river, across the drainage is, maybe it is 500 yards, and you're not going to go down 600 feet elevation and come back up 600 feet elevation and get on the animal. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
So what we wanted to do is be able to teach people how to ethically and consistently shoot at those distances. One of the comments I'll never forget, and this is early on, and I can't remember the client's name, but he was going on an antelope hunt in New Mexico, and I told him, I was like, hey, you need to be prepared to shoot out to about 400 yards, maybe even a little further. And he goes, well, hell, I didn't even know bullets went that far. So I was like, yeah, he was kidding, of course, but it was a comment I'll never forget. So that's it. The long range schools were born out of necessity.
Yeah.
Because we were having a lot of clients that were frustrated. They were either not taking the shots because they weren't confident, so they were coming back empty-handed. They were missing and coming back empty-handed, or worse yet, they were hitting an animal and wounding it and coming home empty-handed.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode. As a thank you, I got more discount codes for all of you. If you are in the market for anything in regards to calls, whether it's elk calls, turkey calls, deer or predator calls, you can save 15% on all Rocky Mountain hunting calls by using the code SOULSEEKERS. That's all one word. And if you're in the market for hard side hydration, a better way to hydrate, go check out hardsidehydration.com. Use the code SOULSEEKERS10 to save 10%. And we also have a discount at Graxaw.com. That is, Graxaw is the leader in ultralight game bags and other backcountry gear. Light, fast, and efficient is their motto. Use the code SOULSEEKERS, all one word, to save 10% at checkout.
So Fortunately, I'm very well connected within the industry. I've got great friends. 99% of them way smarter than me, and they know how to put these things together, or they're already instructors in different things. I've got buddies that are great long range school instructors. I've got buddies that are chefs and avid hunters. So that's kind of how everything came together. But whenever I got the idea to start the long range shooting schools and gear it towards hunters, my first phone call was to a guy named Steve Arian, who still helps us out tremendously. But he was my son's instructor at an academy here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And it's an academy that had a lot of government contracts, and they had a lot of different SEAL teams, SWAT teams, different special ops, special forces teams coming in, but they had a civilian division too. And so I signed myself and Eddie up, my son, who at that time was maybe 10. And he treated Eddie just like an adult. He didn't treat him like a little kid and push him to the side. He treated him like a young man, and Eddie idolizes him still today. And so I just appreciated that. And it turned out he was my neighbor. He lived like a mile up the street from me.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. And so we just became friends. And then when I got this idea, it's like, hey, here's what I want to do. What do you think? And he's like, yeah, I'll help you write the curriculum. And so we did. And I had a place through my outfitting business that had lots of land. Actually, he already had a 1,000-yard range on his property. And so that was our first location. And we did that in June of 2012 is when we did our first class. I think we did 2 classes that year. And, this year we'll do maybe 20. So, so it just progressed. And then we added these 2 locations in Texas. One of them we just finished. It's brand new. We've had 1 class there. So and it's been fantastic, because the cool thing about it is we get all these clients that come in and they're dinging still out to 1,000 yards. That's all off of the bench. But then day 2, we have different ranges and we put them in hunting scenarios. So it's not all just, you're not going to take a bench out in the field with you. So we take them to the day 2 range, which is all just different shooting positions that you're going to encounter whenever you're out in the field. So you may be prone off your backpack. We may have some deadfall, some logs and rocks set up, a tripod sitting, a tripod standing, offhand, just, whatever you can, that you're legitimately going to encounter whenever you're out in the field, and all different distances, all known distances. So they have to use the rangefinder and figure out the distance, figure out the wind hold. And then we do different drills and stuff too, but we try to make it as realistic for a hunting scenario as possible to get them prepped for their next hunt coming up.
Yeah, that makes sense. So before this hunt, I had my gun all dialed in. I was banging still out past 600. Like my dope chart that I made was on. I was feeling good. I was shooting prone. I was laying prone, comfortable behind my gun, straight on, just, bam, ding, like just eating it up, loving it. And then I get into the mountains of Idaho. Now, this is one of the things I don't want to get too off topic because it's out of order just yet. But I made my dope chart for 5,000 feet elevation. But I'm shooting that dope chart at 1,000 feet elevation, being like, oh, it's on. And it is on, but how much of that is really changing for when I get that elevation? Like, can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really good point, and that is going down the weeds a little bit, but it does make a difference. So here in Oklahoma, I'm at 400 feet elevation. So, and I love going to Idaho. It's I think it's one of the most beautiful states ever. But like I leave Sunday for Montana, and we're doing the Western Hunting Summit out there with some of the guys. And I think we'll be at about 5,000 or 6,000 feet elevation, maybe even a little bit higher on some of the other days. But what happens is, obviously, as your elevation changes, so does your air density. Mm-hmm. So we do everything pretty much off of density altitude, which a lot of match shooters and pilots know what density altitude means, and it's basically just what the air feels like to the bullet. But when your actual density, or when your actual altitude changes as well, it's going to change the trajectory of your bullet because the air is thinner. So typically you're going to be shooting higher. Where it typically can make a difference is about every 2,000 to 2,500 feet in elevation change. Mm-hmm. You're going to see a difference Could be as little as 300 yards. Definitely going to see it at the 500-yard range as far as being on vitals or off of vitals. So that's one of the things when all these custom dial turrets came out, where you could actually get them cut for your caliber, for your bullet, for bullet weight, the air temperature, your altitude. A lot of different factors that they put in there, but then they can etch it for you. And then, that mule deer's at 400 yards, you just dial it 400 yards and you're good to go. The problem with those is exactly what you just said. If you're practicing at 1,000 yards elevation, but then you're going to, Wyoming, Montana, Utah, wherever, and you're hunting at 8,000 feet elevation, you have to have another dial. You have to have multiple dials cut. So that's why we're a big fan of just using minute of angle, using a measurement.
Yeah.
Because there's so many ballistic calculators out there, you just take it with you and you put in your data, and it's always the same.
So you're saying, because even though I set my dope chart for 5,000 feet elevation, but I was shooting at 1,000 feet, I'm going to be missing high or hitting high at longer range at higher elevation on the, is that what you said?
So if you had your elevation set for 5,000 feet, so then then you weren't hitting center, then you were hitting high at where you were practicing at home, correct? Or are you still hitting center?
I think I was still hitting center.
Then your dope wasn't hit. Then you weren't zeroed. You weren't zeroed from 5,000 feet elevation.
Interesting.
Because if you're still hitting center, you're hitting center at 1,000 feet elevation. So when you go to 5,000 feet, what caliber were you shooting?
6.5 Creedmoor.
Okay. Yeah. So 6.5 Creedmoor. So you're probably going to be at 5,000 feet elevation. You're probably going to be 2 inches high, or maybe even a little bit more at just 800 yards.
Interesting. Okay, I'm dipping out of the picture for a second because I'm grabbing my dope chart. I gotta keep my Vino harness right in my office in case I gotta range anything, like one of my children or something like that. All right, so check this out. So here's the scenario, my shooting situation. I spot this bear. It's behind some brush, and it's up canyon, but the canyon is like this, so I can't close the distance anymore. I'm at the only shootable location to get on this bear other than dropping, like we talked about earlier, dropping a couple hundred feet down the canyon and then going up the other side. But at that point, you're also risking sound, thermals, wind, like a lot of other variables.
Everything, yeah.
Losing sight of the animal and then hoping that you can see it from wherever you end up. So this bear, we ranged at 533 yards. So I'm on a hill, so I'm downhill, guns uphill on me. I always carry a 13 to 24 bipod on my gun when I'm mountain hunting because of the steep uphill and downhill angles, but then it also worked out well so I could get behind it and have my gun level. Got really comfortable directly behind my gun as much as possible. Felt good on my trigger squeeze. Was right on center of this bear. But it started to move before I shot. And here was one of my catches. I got my eyes, I think, are starting to turn on me. They're going south. So at 525 yards, I'm at 9.5 MOA. At 550.
What are you shooting, like probably 140 grain, 143 grain?
143 grain Hornady ELDX.
Yep.
And then at 550, I'm 10.25. So so we're 3/4 of an MOA off in between that 25-yard mark. What I think happened is I was like, okay, 533, I'm going to split the difference, and I went straight at 10. I might have had it just, I probably should have gone 9.75, especially knowing now that you're going to shoot a couple inches high with this way this dope chart's built for my 1,000-yard shooting to my 1,000-foot elevation shooting to my 5,000-foot elevation shooting. Do you think that kind of played a little bit into that?
Yeah, 100% could. So if you're so if you're at 500 yards, and if you're off 1 MOA, I mean, that's 5 inches right there. So I mean, you're getting close to being out of vital size on a bear. Vital size on a bear is probably around 8 inches.
Mm-hmm.
or so. So there's not a lot of room error for or margin for error
Yeah.
in there. So again, yeah, you've got your elevation change, and I'm still not real clear what you did to adjust for the elevation change, because like in Texas, my dope chart is on my phone, which obviously I'm using here to do this broadcast. But uh, in Texas, we're at about 1,200 feet elevation, and we're shooting 140 grain precision match bullets, which are going to have, actually the BC on those is the ELDXs that you were shooting have a very high BC on them. So they're probably very similar, but I think we're at around 10 minutes at 500 yards at just 1,200 feet of elevation. So now, were you also shooting straight across? Were you shooting up or down?
I was relatively straight across.
Okay. All right. So you didn't have a steep angle or anything.
Nope. That was a part of why I chose the shooting position where I was. I was like,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So there's just so many factors there. So if you're shooting across the drainage, the wind may have been doing nothing where you are, but there's no telling what it was doing, going across that drainage, or even where the bear was, even
Right.
at just 500 yards. So one of the things that we do in the class on day 2, we're in some canyons and some draws and some different things like that. So we had one of the guys drive down into the bottom and pop smoke. And then all the students are up there with us. Like, maybe say if we have no breeze, or if the breeze is blowing a certain direction, you can go down. We go down, pop smoke down in the draw, and every time it's doing something different than what we're feeling right there where we are.
Yeah. Interesting.
So it's like a river current, except it's air.
Okay.
So and that's pushing your bullet. So.
Okay. So going back to the whole 525 to 550, there's a 7-inch drop in the bullet between those 25 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge difference in 25 yards. So
yep.
That is why I was like, oh, did I maybe dial incorrectly? You're saying that I'm going to also shoot 2 to 3 inches higher at that distance, at that elevation, if I'm hitting center at 1,000 feet elevation. So a lot of these things play into it, and I'm like, okay, I need to hone my craft. I need to own it. And it's time to become a better shooter so that I can be a more effective hunter. What are some of these tools or shooting strategies that you're teaching your students in these courses when they're coming in and joining you to be able to master and effectively make these long range shots?
Yeah, so great question, and that is exactly what the schools are about. And there's other factors that play in that play into each scenario differently as well. So one of them, I would say, possibly in your scenario, is caliber choice and bullet choice as well. So depending on how often you hunt Idaho, for me personally, I may have taken a little bit more forgiving caliber. I may have gone to a 300 Win Mag or something. And I'm a huge fan of the Creedmoor. It gets a lot of crap and it gets a lot of hate online, but it is a awesome round. It's probably, in my opinion, one of the most efficient rounds out there for what it does at a lot of different distances. So anyway, so I'm a huge fan of it. So I'm not knocking on it. But whenever you get into terrain like that,
let me just say this real quick. I am on back order with Seekins Precision for a 7mm PRC that I was supposed to have prior to this hunt.
Oh yeah.
So when you say maybe a little under calibered for like that distance and like, I get it. And you work with the cards you're dealt, right?
You dealt. Yep. No, I totally get it. And a Creedmoor will definitely get it done. Just everything has to fall into place, and maybe that's what happened. Everything just didn't fall into place. So that's where we start at, and that's one thing we talk about, and that's one of the questions we get a lot during our schools, because almost everybody is prepping for a hunt, and we even have a class that we call a hunter's prep course. It's not a 1,000-yard course; it's a 500-yard course, and it's only a 2-night, 1.5 day instead of a 3-night, 2.5 day. So it's a little bit different animal, but yeah. So that's one of the places that we start. But to get people prepared for the hunt, and that's a hashtag that we use all the time. on our post is prepare for the hunt, because that's exactly what we're doing for you. So the way that the classes work, so we go through a curriculum review on the day that they arrive, and we get a lot of new shooters too. So you don't have to have any level of experience to come to a class, and we get people that literally like our last class that we did, actually when our last Texas class that we did, we had two gentlemen from Mexico came, and one of them, Andres, at that point had sent maybe 4 rounds downrange with a rifle prior to coming to our class.
Wow.
So very inexperienced. And so he's nervous, and that's just going to be natural. But once we got him going, because our instructors are super cool, even though they've got all these pedigrees, Navy SEALs and Green Berets and Scout Snipers and work for the DOJ, and they've just got all these pedigrees, and they're all guys, big burly dudes, and they can be a little intimidating, but they're big old teddy bears. They're just super nice guys. And so once he got into his rhythm, he's probably still smiling. He had such a good time. But we build them up, and we teach them how to start how to start reading wind, which you're going to do when you're on the spotting scope. That's where you're going to learn, because you're seeing everything that's happened. When you're behind the gun, you're focused on the target. You want to hit the target, but you're not always going to hit where you were aiming, and you're going to miss, and your wind call is going to be wrong. There's things are going to be happening, but when you're in that spotting scope, you're seeing everything that's going on. You're seeing the mirage. You're seeing the wind blowing. You're seeing the dust from other people's misses, or you're seeing the impact on somebody else's target and seeing which way the dust is going. And so you're starting to learn how to call wind and how to give your shooter a hold for your wind. So that's one of the first things that they're going to be learning, typically not until they get out to around 400, 500 yards, which is going to be the end of the morning shoot. But you're just going to be learning on the known distance range. When you're on the bench, it's all the basics. So it's going to be, do you have the rifle shouldered properly? Is your cheek weld proper? Is your eye relief proper? How's your trigger squeeze? How's your breathing? Is your hand placement correct? Just a lot of little things that start making big differences as you start getting at the 500, 600 yards and further. The little things really make a lot of difference. So we really fine tune those. But when you're a hunter, you're not taking that 100-pound bench out in the woods with you. You're shooting off of a shooting stick or leaning against a tree or whatever. So everybody hits the 1,000-yard target. They understand why they did it. They start to understand their dope or their data. Why they're dialing 30 minutes at 1,000 yards. They're understanding the reticle system, because we do some reticle work as well. So they're starting to understand that. But where the magic really happens is whenever we go to the hunting scenarios on day 2, because we're putting them in the actual hunting positions like I was talking about earlier. And we kind of let them start figuring it out. We're not coaching them through everything. We coach them as a group. It was like, here's how we shoot off of a tripod in a sitting position. Here's some of the tools that we use. Grab your backpack, put it on your thigh, dig your elbow into that backpack, and now you've got 3 points of contact instead of just 2. So the more points of contact you can have, the more steady you're going to be. So just a lot of simple tricks like that we do. How to get into a better position when you're standing off of a tripod. That's a tough shot. A lot of people think, oh, it's super steady. It's not. But there are some tricks that you can do that'll help you get more steady.
Anything that you can share right now?
Yeah, on the tripod.
Yeah.
So we actually have a couple of really good videos on our YouTube channel. Actually, we probably have 2 or 3. It's a topic we cover quite a bit. But one of the big ones, just one of the simple ones. One is to square up. Don't be side to side. So square up on your tripod. And where a lot of people don't know what to do, kind of the it just left me the name of the movie. I don't know what to do with my hands. You probably know what I'm talking.
Yeah.
Is it not Ron Jeremy, but anyways. Anyways, a lot of people don't know what to do with their left hand. If you're right-handed, obviously you've got your trigger hand, but your other one, do I put it up here? What do I do with it? So one of the things that you can do when you've got that tripod and it's standing there, you can do a overhand grip like this and grip across, and you don't have to completely lock in, but have a good grip on it. And that cross brace just gives you another level of stability.
Mhm.
And there, so that's just one of the tricks that you can do. Another one that we see a lot of people do is they will just put the very edge of their foregrip in the tripod saddle. Or some of them even put their barrel in there. Never have your barrel touching anything. That's going to mess with the whip, and you're going to miss no matter what. So you always want your forestock in there. But if you push it forward enough to where it's almost balanced in the tripod,
Yep.
then you're not controlling so much of the rifle back here. You're up here on it, and you're not having to control as much of the rifle. The tripod is handling more of it. So that's
Gotcha.
a big one. That's probably one of the bigger ones right there, is to balance your rifle within the tripod, whether you're standing or sitting. So that's the kind of rule number one right there.
When you are teaching long range hunting, not like excessive, but long range shooting at animals at long distance, and you know you're going into a hunt where it's like, okay, I'm probably going to be taking a 400 plus yard shot. Are you packing a rear bag, or are you having people take off their bino harnesses and get it underneath the buttstock, or what do you guys do or recommend?
So we actually have bags made. I use two. I take at least one of them on every hunt that I go on. And it's either just carabine to my pack where I can pull it off really quick, or sometimes I do stuff it down in my pack. But yeah, I take one with me on almost every hunt that I go on. There may be a few that I haven't, but if you see some of our videos, you can see me climbing up Kodiak, which is steep as all get. I thought Idaho was steep. Kodiak was ridiculous. And I've got my shooting bag with me. If you don't have it, you can if you get your backpack off, use it. It's just something that you dig your elbow into of your trigger on your whatever your trigger finger is on. So if you're right-handed, you're just digging that elbow in, and you're just getting it just another level of stability. But I take two bags with me on almost every trip, at least one for sure.
What bag do you recommend for a backpack hunter?
So we actually work with Phoenix shooting bags. They customize ours for us. Of course, they got our logo and stuff on them. But we actually use, I believe, what is considered their medium bag. And then we use another one that they call the donut, I think is what they call it. And you can actually, it's really cool. You can actually flatten it out like you're putting it on a fence post or a tree or something like that. Or you can roll it. It's got a dry bag closure on it. So you can roll it up and then clip it together.
Uh-huh.
And then it tightens up into a small ball basically. So you could use it as a front or a rear. I have that with me on every trip.
Mm.
And then a lot of trips I take the medium bag with me also, but I always have that roll up one because I can just snap it on my backpack.
Gotcha. How many people, when they come to your shooting school, are bringing their own weapons versus do you guys provide any? And how many are showing up with like your standard 3 to 9 uh, rifle, duplex reticle, all that stuff? Is
So
there
we,
a certain like protocol or expectation that you have for like, hey, if you're gonna go out west and hunt these types of hunts, this is what you want?
we've learned a lot of lessons on letting people bring their own gear from the old days. Because when we first started classes in 2012, we let somebody bring their own. They would bring their grandfather's 30-06 with the Tasco 3x9 because it had a lot of sentimental value. I want to shoot 1,000 yards with my grandfather's gun. I was like, yeah, that would be really cool, but you can't get there from here.
Right.
It's not going to happen. So we've learned over the years. So first, yes, we actually provide everything. We provide the firearms, the optics, and the ammo. We actually provide the lodging, the meals, everything. So we've got really nice 4-star accommodations, really good meals. So you don't have to leave. You don't have to worry about hotels. You don't have to worry about restaurants. You just come and stay with us. And then we've got outstanding gear. So here's what's different about our classes compared to some of the other places. One, we are not trying to sell you a custom rifle because we don't have any custom rifles to sell. We're not a manufacturer. Obviously, we're not against custom rifles. We all own them ourselves. I've got multiple custom rifles, but for the classes, we wanted to go a different route. We wanted to do everything that you could just go buy off the shelf. That you could go to your favorite sporting goods store, go get you a Savage, a Browning, a Remington, whatever your flavor is. We're using the Benelli Lupo, is what we use in ours, and we're using it in 6.5 Creedmoor. Since since the beginning of our classes, we've used Zeiss. We're huge fans of Zeiss. They've got incredible glass. They've got a line that is very reasonable with all the bells and whistles. So we've got really good glass on there, but reasonable as well. And then we're using factory ammunition. We're not using any hand loads at all. So for our long range schools, we're using Barnes Precision Match 6.5 Creedmoor 140 grain. We have never ever had anybody with just regular factory gear consistently hit the 1,000-yard mark.
Yeah, no core locks are showing up and smashing.
We have them show up with people that bring their own, so that's the other side of it. So we do have people that bring their own, and like I said, we had to start getting a little bit smarter to find out what they were showing up with. So we actually have a form that they fill out now that tells us what they have.
Yeah.
And then if it's something that just isn't reasonable, we'll call them. Of course, we're nice about it. We're not trying to, trash what they're, talk bad about what they're using, because I hate for it. If you're wanting to hit 1,000 yards, this probably isn't the best setup. So you can use ours, and if you want to bring that rifle, go ahead and bring it. But realistically, you're probably going to get to about 400 yards or 500 yards, whatever it may be. So they're still welcome to bring it, but we just don't want them to have expectations that they can shoot 1,000 yards with it.
Gotcha.
So, and that doesn't really happen very much anymore. Everybody's now, to answer your other question, probably about 40% bring their own, but they use ours all of day one until they get out to 1,000 yards. And then at the end of day one, once everybody goes and gets a picture taken at the 1,000-yard targets, then we have about another hour and a half that we basically just go through the process again, but with their rifle. We confirm their zero. We ask them that they have it zero before they get there. We build them a ballistic chart in an app that we use. And then we just start walking them out just like they do with our guns, but at a much faster pace. And then we find out what the limits of their equipment is, or their limits with their equipment. So, and that helps them get prepared for their hunt. Then on day two, most of them opt to use their own for about half of day two, and then they go back to ours. Why burn up their ammo and their barrels when they can use ours? As long as whenever they get to the point they feel comfortable, like, okay, I'm good with mine. I'm ready for this elk hunt or this antelope hunt or whatever. So they'll put theirs up, save their ammo, and burn ours up.
Yeah. How many rounds should someone expect to shoot when they're at a shooting school like this?
About 150 to 200.
Oh, wow.
Is what they'll go through. Yeah, you get to shoot all you want.
That is awesome. Ironically, that's a lot of money these days, especially if you're shooting these bigger calibers. Like the boxes of 7mm PRC that I was looking at the store, like $70 a box. So 200 rounds of that, you're pushing like $800. Is that wrapped up into the price of the course as well?
So the ammo that's included is for our rifle, so it's 6.5 Creedmoor. Now, if they're bringing their own and they're shooting a 6.5, they can still use ours. But if they're bringing, a PRC or an Ultra Mag or a 300 Win or something like that, they have to bring their own ammo. For their own ammo, most go through maybe 40 to 60 rounds of their own on a high side. And then some guys are going to be conservative with their ammo. And they're like, yeah, I don't have very much of this, So
right.
They need to have at least 2 boxes, 40 rounds, if they're wanting to get something out of using their own rifle.
Yeah. So a lot of thoughts come to my head right here when we're talking about all this, because there's a certain investment that people often forget and miss when it comes to just life in general. I spent multiple thousands of dollars to fly from Seattle all the way down to San Diego 6 different times. I had to put myself up in a hotel, pay for flights to do this leadership course that really transformed my life. Like my foundation for a lot of my stuff came from this course. Now, a lot of people are like, well, man, I'd love you. It sounds like you had a great time. Like I can tell it really impacted you. How much did you pay? And you're like, oh, well, it probably totaled like $6,000 after it was all said and done. And they're like, I can't do that. And I'm like, well, how much is your life worth? Like, how much is your happiness worth? How much is your mindset worth? How much is who you are and how you are each and every day worth to you? So I take that mindset and I apply it to this. How much do you love hunting? How much do you love shooting? How much would you kick yourself if you miss that animal of a lifetime because you are not honed at your craft? Now, I understand for the hobbyist type person that, goes out 3 days during a deer season and it's like, all right, I went deer hunting and we, kind of do it once a year and all that. Then maybe not your style, but the idea is that if you love hunting it, you get to invest in yourself and what you love way, way more than the price tag, right? Because what you learn at a course, it's like paying for a college course. How much does a typical college course cost, right?
Exactly.
$1,500 maybe, or $500 on the cheap end, but those are courses that you're more just knocking through rather than like actually gaining pertinent knowledge, and that's going to be life impacting. So when you're talking about these shooting schools, what is the price tag for these? Because have you ever had someone walk away feeling like it wasn't worth it?
No, fortunately, we've had, so out of all since 2012 of doing these, we had one instance where a guy got kind of crappy with us, but it was on a completely unrelated deal. But everybody else has left 100% happy, and that's one of the questions that we ask, and everybody believes that they got more than they expected. And then another thing too, that one of the biggest compliments that we get is on our instructors, because like what I was mentioning earlier, these guys have got the ultimate of pedigrees. Just as an example, one of my guys, Jonathan McDonald, we call him. Well, you met Mac.
Yep. Yep.
At DSC. So he's a Green Beret and he's an 18 Delta. So I mean, the dude is not only a Green Beret sniper that can shoot you from a mile away, but he's also an 18 Delta. So I mean, he can patch you up and save your life. I mean, the dude is like super smart. And so he's just got all this background. Then you've got Eric Lund, who's just this big, massive, very intimidating looking dude. He works for the DOJ. And he's a big old teddy bear. But everybody's like, man, I'm just so intimidated coming in. But your instructors were so nice and they were having so much fun. And that's actually one of the things that I tell all the students at our class in the beginning is like, your job, my challenge to you is to have more fun learning than our instructors do teaching, because they just absolutely love it. A lot of these guys served together overseas, actually not served in the military. They all did contract work together after their military career. So they were contractors together. So they all know each other. And they just have a blast. They love it. They say it's therapy for them, so they bond with the students and have a good time. The classes are small. That's something I didn't mention earlier. So classes are maxed out at 14 students per class. So, but of those 14, only 7 are on the shooting line at one time. So the other 7 are on the spotting scopes. And so you're paired up. So you're in teams. But for those 7 that are shooting, I'm going to have 4 instructors there. And I guarantee you there's no other school out there that has the instructor to student ratio that we do. So that means you get a ton of one-on-one time with your instructor, because there's always going to be that guy or two. We get an engineer or a pilot in there. They ask a lot of questions.
Right.
They want to know how the bullet got there.
I had a guest on. He's the author of the book. Let's see, Turning Feral. Zach Hansen. Have you ever heard of the book?
I have not.
It's this guy who he actually moved up to Idaho and wanted to learn how to hunt and be self-sufficient. That one of his very first hunts, he actually hired a guide service to take him out, specifically because it's like cutting corners in the best way possible. You pay for a course. That course is a knowledge book. You're only going to gain as much knowledge as the questions you ask. So be prepared to just, spend the money and take in as much as you can. And I view hiring an outfitter for like one of your first hunts to be the same as spending money on a shooting school or doing stuff like this or your other courses. And we're going, we'll go as long as we want, but we might have to do a second podcast to talk about the From Field to Table courses that you guys have going on as well. But this idea that you guys really are outdoor solutions. We have problems. Come to you because you got outdoor solutions, whether it's shooting, hunting, and all the other courses that you got going on. So it's awesome. By the way, Greg, what was the typical price for your shooting courses?
Yeah, so the 1,000 yard course is $2,975, so $2,975. You just have to get there. We provide everything else. Like I said, that's the meals, lodging, firearms, optics, ammo, everything. So that's the 1,000 yard class. That is 3 nights, 2.5 days.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the hunters prep course that we only do at our newest Texas location, and that is 2 nights, 1.5 days. That is a 500 yard course, and that one is 1950 or 1975, I believe.
Okay.
And then we do a class that we call Next Level, which really amps it up. Super, super cool. You spend a lot of time in the Caprock Canyon where we have 3D animal targets with steel vitals. And we're taking you on a hunt. You have to glass them. You have to find them. You have to figure out what your shooting position is going to be. We even have a bear there for you, man.
Yeah.
that you've got to figure out how to get on him, how to hit him. He's down in the canyon. So perfect scenario for you. But it is an awesome class. That's the one that I told you that we just did, and it was our first one there. That one I believe is around 34, maybe 3,500.
Gotcha.
And we really encourage everybody to bring their own rifle in that one because it's to really get you ready. I mean, we break out shot timers, and when you're coming to a station, you don't realize it's a station, but we may tell you, hey, it's elk season. You got to find the elk. And as you're glassing, you're going to see an antelope. You're going to see a bear. You're going to see these other things, but you can't shoot those. You've got to find the elk first. Now, after you shoot the elk, then you can work on the other animals within that station. But we work on glassing skills. You've got your pack and everything that you would take on your pack in a hunt, on a day hunt. So you got your pack, you got your binos, you got your rangefinder, you got your shooting sticks. If you're using shooting bags, obviously your rifle, your optics, your binos, and we're taking you on a hunt. So this is after you spent some time warming up on the known distance range using a bench. But then we're going to the canyon and we're going hunting, and you may get on the elk, and one of the instructors may decide, hey, you know what? The elk's getting ready to go walk into the aspens. You've got 10 seconds, 10, 9, 8. And then people panic. They lose their mind. It could be the most seasoned hunter ever. We just had this happen to the guy from Mexico that I was telling you about. He completely, when that shot timer went off, he completely forgot to chamber around. Or no, I take that back. He shot the first time at the target. I think he actually hit it. And then the instructor told him, he's like, shoot again. And he's trying to pull the trigger, and he never even worked the bolt. It's just because that timer was going off. He was doing a countdown, and he completely forgot to work the bolt.
Yes.
So you lose the basics. But yeah, so those are the cost of the classes.
It's so fascinating. You lose the basics. We fall back onto our training. We don't fall forward onto like, oh yeah, I got this. Like I got this.
Yep.
I did a pistol training course one day.
Yeah.
And we're going through drawing from our holsters and self-defense and acquiring that target before you're squeezing that trigger, making sure you are accountable and knowing where your round is going to be going. So they did, but then they put the timer on us, and they had us stand not far from this like silhouette steel body target, but they're like, go, ding. I missed my first shot drawing out of my holster because I was so concerned about the time and being fast that I missed something like right in front of me. I was like, holy smokes. Okay, I get it. I need to train. I need to work and hone my craft because we don't fall forward. We always fall back upon our skill set. So I love that. Under the banner of mentorship is conservation, because that's what Soul Seekers is all about, right? It's about hooking people, inspiring them, showing them how awesome this outdoor lifestyle is. You guys on a part of Outdoor Solutions also run from field to table. And I think it's super fascinating how you are getting these people, share for yourself. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but new hunters, newer hunters, people who have no experience. Like, what's the gamut that are signing up for these courses?
So this thing has just turned out to be absolutely amazing. And earlier on in the beginning of this podcast, You talked about the direction of hunting and kind of the transition of hunting, how the different phases that you kind of go through as a hunter. And now having done this for 19 years, I look back at how hunting has changed for me, and nothing has more dramatically changed my outlook on hunting, my purpose for hunting, my reason for hunting, than putting together this From Field to Table. It has been an absolute game changer for me. It's just like hunting is completely different now for me after learning what I've learned. So when I started Field to Table in May of 2019, we had talked about this for years. Me and two other guys. I don't know if you know Ian Harrison, editor in chief of Recoil Magazine, and then he started Carnivore Magazine as well.
Okay.
And then Ben O'Brien, also a podcaster. So two real good buddies of mine. And years ago, we had, talked about this concept about putting together a really cool magazine. That's what Ian was talking about, and making it not about the cool gear, the cool guns, but about making awesome meals from wild game and pairing it with some significant wine, a really good wine or a micro brew or something like that. Just a cool magazine like that. That's what it was about. And anyway, I was like, man, I know some guys that can teach classes on how to do that. And this was actually in Texas, sitting around a fire. We just got through doing some night vision and thermal hog hunting. So this is probably, we got back at like 3:00 in the morning. We built a fire, we were drinking some whiskey, and we were solving the problems of the world. And this came up. Fast forward to literally like 6 years later, I'm listening to Ben O'Brien's podcast. At that time, it was his original podcast, and I'm forgetting the name of it. His new one now is The Woodside. But anyway, it was on his old podcast, and he had Ian on there, who's from Great Britain, and he was talking about this new magazine that he started. I was like, that's the magazine that he was talking about 6 years ago. And so I called him, and I was actually leaving Phoenix, which is where he lives. I forgot that he lived there. I was there during a trade show, and I was like, dude, I was just listening to your podcast with Ben. I said, you did your magazine? He's like, yeah, I did. I said, you remember me talking about remember me talking about putting together classes? Like, yeah. I said, let's do that. This was in March of 2019. And so I made 2 phone calls, and in May of 2019, 2 months later, we put together our very first From Field to Table class. So my other phone call was to Chef Albert, who is our main chef of 4 different chefs. And so we put together our first class. We did 2 in 2019. This year we're doing 22 classes. So it just has blown up. And so what happened was the original reason for starting it is that, like everybody else, when you're a brand new hunter, you have to learn everything. You have to learn shot placement, what caliber to choose, where to hang a tree stand, how to hang a tree stand, how do you find animals out west, how do you track them? Once you track them, you got to get on them, you got to shoot them. Then you got to learn how to field dress them and skin them. Then you got to pack them out. My experience ended with, after I packed it out, I dropped it off at a processor. 4 years ago, I could have told you the difference between an eye round and a flat iron, what part of the animal they came from, how you cooked it, what cooking method. Nothing. I didn't know any of that. It was all the same as far as I was concerned. And so I felt a little bit like a hypocrite because I didn't know. And I work in the industry. It's like, I need to know this stuff. And so that's why I wanted to start it. Well, it has grown into a whole different animal. Like I said, in 2019, we did 2 classes. And then in 2020, maybe 6 or 7, maybe 6 to 8 classes. But we noticed that we were getting some new hunters coming in. And we had also invited some media the second year. Well, some of the media that showed up in 2020, one of them was American Hunter. And they ended up putting us on the cover. And that we were the main story. We were in the feature story, and it blew up, and all these people started finding out about us, and we noticed a transition in 2021, and then last year that half of every class was new hunters. doing their very first, not just new, but doing their very first hunt with us ever.
Mm.
And so I'm curious, like, one, how did you find out about us? Two, why are you here? The number one reason that we got was like, I didn't grow up hunting. My dad didn't hunt. I didn't have my family, none of my buddies hunt. I was like, well, why are you wanting to? It was like, I love the idea of providing for myself. The world is getting pretty crazy. A lot of people don't know where their food comes from, and I want to be able to provide for myself. And so it's very intimidating. You're dealing with guns. A lot of them were actually pretty familiar with guns, but just not hunting. But anyway, you're dealing with guns. And how do you start hunting? Where do you start? You just go walking through the woods.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? And then if you happen to stumble across something, you shoot it. Well, then what do you do?
Right.
So they said it's intimidating. There's a lot to learn. And so when we found out that there was a program from Field to Table that someone would be with us, a professional, from the time that we were on the range to the time that we're in the kitchen, it's very appealing. So that's kind of the life that is taken up on its own. So last year we partnered with the NWTF and the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and every student that came to one of our From Field to Table classes got a 1-year membership. We bought them a 1-year membership to each of those conservation groups. Out of, I believe we had about 180 students last year, and half of those were first-time hunters. So almost 100 new hunters last year coming through our program. So that's what gets me fired up, is bring these people. And it's not about the numbers, but for me anyway, it's not. Yeah, the more hunters, the better. I guess you hear pros and cons to both, but it's that they had a positive experience. Because a lot of them I asked them was like, did you have a preconception of what hunters were like? Did you think that, we were just a bunch of dudes with beards wearing flannel and camo and drank whiskey and beer and shot at everything that moved? And some like, yeah, that's kind of what we thought, because the media does not do us any favors.
Right.
And anyway, so some of them, but the others like, no, man, I really didn't know, I didn't know anything. So if we could give them a first positive experience, whether if they never hunt again, but they said, hey man, those guys were really cool. We had a guy come from New Orleans. He actually won a contest that we put on. His name's Ozzy, and he's a chef from New Orleans. Very hipster dude, man. He came in this bright yellow shirt. He had skinny jeans with purple socks. He had these round hipster glasses, and he had a train conductor's hat on. So I mean, he was as hipster as you get, and I'm got my camo on, and I look like a hunter. But he was welcome just like anybody else. You don't have to look like a certain way or anything, and that's what he went hunting in too, man. So but he absolutely loved it, and he was a rock star in the kitchen, because he was a chef, and he was all about eating clean and providing for himself and local sourcing and all that kind of stuff. So we made a friend for life. I don't know that he's going to hunt a whole lot anymore, but we've had others too. Tori from New Mexico, she went from a non-hunter to a rabbit hunter. I mean, her and her husband hunted a ton, and now she's leaving him at home and she's going on hunts.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
So there's a ton of cool stories like that.
Well, one of the most fascinating things is that, and this falls under this mentorship as conservation concept, this idea, is there are roles within, the tribe. We have our hunters, we have our gatherers, we have our nurturers, all these different things. I don't expect every single person to be a hunter. What I do expect is that every single person has a positive uh, outlook towards hunting, and then therefore that impacts their voting and the way legislation goes about, because that is one of the biggest things. A lot of times, like, oh well, let's take like bears in the state of Washington, for example, because that's been such under attack recently. You have a giant population within Seattle in the Northwest that isn't even aware of really nature and the differences of the reintroduction of grizzly bears in the Northern Cascades in the state of Washington. Oh, that sounds great. That sounds great. Go for it. Go for it. Go for it. But they're not the ones that are interacting or or going through that process as much. Now, if you have a more larger population that understands the importance of hunting and how animals interact with each other and the landscape and all that, then you have people that are able to, call upon their congressmen, the representatives, and hit them on issues that are going to be more pro hunting down the line. And that's one of the biggest things. Is like I became a hunter, then I had 3 boys. I don't, maybe all 3 of my children don't hunt. That's their own prerogative. They're going to have the skill set, they're going to have the knowledge, but they're going to have the respect for the action. And then, therefore, they'll be able to make choices and vote and impact society on a grander scale beyond ourselves, right? Because when we're out in the woods, we're in the mountains, we're doing these activities. It's like, oh, it's just me and the animal. It's just me and the animal. No, it's not. It's you, the animal, and everything that you do with it. How you share that story, the food that you provide, what ends up because even how you take work off, and all of a sudden a boss or an employer is like, oh, he's gone again, or I can't believe they're missing it. It's like how we share everything about hunting is the most critical and impactful thing that we can do to hook people or inspire them, or to then paint the picture for them to be like, I respect that. Maybe I don't get it, maybe I'm not doing it, but I respect that, and therefore I like that person. And you know what? They care about this enough to dedicate themselves towards it. I might want to look into this. Maybe I need to educate myself on this. And that is how this ball keeps rolling, so that hunting lives on for generations to come. And I freaking love what you're doing, Greg. I think it's phenomenal. Outdoor Solutions is really a solution for a lot of people's issues, and I love it. One of the things that we did not cover on the whole from field to table plate, or from field to table part, is when someone signs up for one of those courses, what does that entail? What does that cost? Because you're actually taking them on a hunt, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's very in depth, and you're drinking from a fire hose when you come to one. So we started them in Texas, and of course we still do a ton of them in Texas. But from there we go to New Mexico for cow elk, Montana for antelope, Wyoming for cow elk, Alaska for bear. Next year we'll be in Saskatchewan and British Columbia for bear as well. Here in Oklahoma for turkey and deer and hogs. So we do a little bit of everything. We've got a lot of different locations that we're doing them. So at our Texas location, we have the really nice ranges because that's where we do our long range schools. So we go to the range and we just do some basic shooting. It's none of our long range school stuff. So shot placement, firearm safety, just some of the basics. Then you go out and you go hunting, and you're going hunting with guides that are on that particular property. Our property in Texas is a 40,000 acre operating cattle ranch, and it's got all the typical deer, hogs, turkeys. We do waterfowl there. And so you're going out and hunting, and then the guide is going to work with you and show you how to field dress an animal, how to skin an animal. It goes into a walk-in cooler. You're going to go hunt some more. Typically in Texas now, because we've got hogs, you can hunt 2 hogs, or you can hunt a deer and 2 hogs, depending on the season. And so you're at least one of your animals is in the cooler. You're going to go out and you're going to hunt some more. You'll spend some more time with us on the range. Somebody had some issues like, hey, I couldn't really get steady while I was sitting in a ground blind or a tower blind or the tripod or whatever. So we'll work with you on some specifics. But then when the chefs come in, everybody, usually by the time they come in, everybody has at least one animal, and we always get one for the chef. And so they basically just do as Simon says, and they're like, okay, here's where I start on an animal. So I take the tenderloins off. So he'll take a tenderloin out, show everybody how to do it. And then on their animal, they'll take a tenderloin out. And then it's like, okay, the next thing I do is I take out a back strap. And he just basically goes through the whole animal on the primal cut. So he's taking off the quarters, the back straps, and the neck meat. They go in their bins back in the cooler. They're going to go hunt some more. Then they're going to come back and they're going to break down those quarters into the subprimal cuts. So as an example, the hind quarter has 7 different muscles in it. And so they're going to break that down. They're going to learn meat ID. They're going to learn that there are 3 different categories that we put it in. And it's either going to be a tender cut, a less than tender cut, or a tough cut. And then we'll go through all the different cooking methods for each one of those categories. And they're going to break all of that down. That's going to go back into the man. So it'll be on the hind quarter, the front shoulder. Obviously, the back stripes are what they are. The tenderloins are what they are. And then on the last day, they spend the full day in the processing center. They'll make multiple different kinds of sausage that we'll probably have on the menu, and then some for them to take home. And so we'll put them in casings, and they'll make some bratwurst or some chorizo or whatever happens to be on the menu. And then everybody goes into the kitchen. I say everybody. Classes are small, 8 people. 8 to 12 people is typically what a class is, but just say 8 people. So everybody is paired up. So there'll be 4 teams of 2, and everybody will have a dish that they prepare off of the menu that the chef has put together. So they're working in the kitchen with the chef. And so then we prepare this big wild game feast, and everybody sits at the table, and we all tell stories of the past 4 days of the hunt. And then all of their other animals are that they've butchered. They also vacuum seal them. They mark them. They know what they are. So when they go in their freezer at home and they go pull it out, it's like, oh, this is a top round. What can I do with the top round? Well, then they can go to our website, to fromfieldtotable.com. They can look at the butchering graph and go, oh, a top round is a tender cut. I can make some medallions. I can make some steaks. I can do this. I can do that. And then they can find all the recipes for all the tender cuts and use one of the recipes and go in the kitchen and cook a bomb-ass meal with it.
Ah, that's awesome. Okay, so you, from Field to Plate, you guys are offering annual subscription. And what does that get? What do you get with that subscription?
From Field to Table. Field to Plate, something completely different.
Oh my gosh, dude.
It's actually another really awesome.
Yeah.
It's really another really awesome guy. His name's Jeremiah Dottie, and super cool guy. Very passionate about what he does.
Had him on the podcast before. He's been a guest on the show. So
yeah, Jeremiah's awesome. Yeah. So, but yeah, he's Field to Plate. I'm Field to Table.
I apologize. Jeez.
Oh, no worries, man. No, we're in good company with him. He's a good dude.
But you offer an annual subscription for on fromfieldtotable.com. What covers under that subscription?
Yes, we just launched it last weekend. It's brand new. We did a soft launch at the Harrisburg show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the Great American Outdoor Show. We did a soft launch there just so that we could work through some of the mechanical side on the technical side on the back side of the website. So basically what it is, whenever people come to a live Field to Table, like I said a second ago, they're drinking from a fire hose. So they're getting a ton of information. And then so when they go to pull something out of the freezer, they're like, hey, what do I do with this? Or they're in the woods and they're getting ready to start dismantling an animal. And they're like, how's it supposed to do that? So we wanted to put something where all aspects were in one place. And yeah, you can do that on YouTube, but YouTube really throttles you on what you can show and what you can't show. And so we wanted to be all access. We wanted you to be able to see everything. And we wanted it all in a very organized place. And we wanted to build a community at the same time. So what we've done, we add videos weekly. We started with a base of about 30 videos. There's some firearms videos in there, just some basics, kind of like some of the stuff I explained on how to get steady off of a tripod. So there's some of the shooting stuff in there, but we've got about 22 butchering videos in there already. And then we just started adding, I've got a library now of 20 some cooking videos, and we're now adding one a week in there. But we'll also be adding cooking methods, cooking utensils. In addition to that, we have this community side where you can all interact with each other, and you guys can share different recipes. You can share hunting tips. It's basically kind of like Facebook, but then we'll also do lives. So like I may send out a notifications like, hey, 1 week from today, Chef Albert's going to be live and he's going to be cooking this. Here's the ingredients to the recipe. If you want to go buy those ingredients at the grocery store, pull the protein out of your freezer or buy it at the grocery store and cook along live with the chef, you can do that. If you want to do a live Q&A, we'll do live Q&As every so often, especially in tune with whatever season is coming up. Like, okay, we just got out of turkey and we're ending bear season is coming to an end as well. So yeah, we'll kind of keep it with whatever the flavor of the season is.
Right.
And we're doing tons of different giveaways. We've got great partners with Made with Meat. That's all of our processing equipment. Camp Chef, Benelli, Zeiss, a lot of outdoor solutions gear that we're going to be giving away. We'll throw up different competitions for people to do, different challenges, I guess would be a better word. And then just a lot of educational videos on there. So those are, it's $129 for the entire year, and that gets you everything. There's nothing else to purchase once you get inside.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so we're going to wrap this bad boy up, and we're going to have you share the information. How do people go about finding you?
So we've got two websites. The one that I was just talking about is from fieldtotable.com. Obviously, everything Field to Table. Our store is on there as well, where you can find our gear and then all the stuff from our different partners that we work with. Great butchering, tons of recipes, a lot of stuff on there. You can also find the university, the membership program, and then there is Outdoor Solutions Corp, CORP.com, which has all of our hunts, all of our fishing trips. Our long range schools has all the information on there as well. Our YouTube channel, just put in Outdoor Solutions, will be the first thing to pop up. Lots of good educational videos. There's fun videos, different hunts, kinds of cooking videos, just to show that anybody can do it. And then Facebook, and we have two accounts on Instagram as well, just from Field to Table, OS from Field to Table, and then OS Long Range Shooting Schools.
I love it. I love it. Greg, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing all your information and knowledge, inspiring people. Also doing this Instagram live. It can always be a little stressful with technology, like,
Hey, it worked out.
Yeah, right. So, brother, thank you so much. Be blessed. And I'm really excited. I need to sign up for one of your schools, your long-range shooting schools. I need to hone my craft. We're going to be talking about that offline here. And I'm really excited. Everybody, go check out OutdoorSolutionsCorp.com or from fieldtotable.com. Get as much knowledge and information as you can. Remember, this is your craft, and it is your job to master it as best as you can. I'm Johnny Mack for Greg Ray, the owner and founder of Outdoor Solutions. Be blessed. Remember that life is happening for you. It's not happening to you. You're not the product or result of the circumstances in your life. And that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure. So go ahead and share the good news with everybody out there. Remember that mentorship is conservation, and you can never outgive good. Be blessed, everybody. Freedom on, and stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating, as it helps us share our mission of mentorship is conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure. If you want to get more connected with the podcast, check out the Soul Seekers Nation Facebook group, as I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. So stay tuned and stay soulful.